Hello, English 231 students. Dr. Mills back with you for week five. We're going to get going with week five lecture here in a second. I just wanted to welcome you to the second half of the semester. Sorry, and let you know that we're ready to take off for the last part of the semester. So hang tight, continue to do the work you're doing, and also um, let me know if you have any issues. Grading is ongoing, so you'll be getting those grades in as they pour in. You'll see the grades populating in the grade book, or you'll get alerts. I think you get alerts through Blackboard, let you know when something's being graded. So doing that, I do want to make an announcement about some of you letting me know that you are turning stuff in late. When you turn something in late, if it's past the due date, and you didn't turn anything in that week at all, then that's not only a late assignment, but it's also an absence for that week. So be careful with those, okay? Calculating the absences can hurt you in the long run. If you miss too many days, you can get dropped. So the lecture title here is American Myths and Landscapes. This goes with our week five readings for Washington Irving, Rip Van Winkle. The next one is James Fenimore Cooper's From the Last Mohicans. And then the last one is William Cullen Bryant, Thanatopsis. So we'll talk about those three, the last one being a poem. Again, American Myths and Landscapes, Defining a National Voice in Early American Literature. This week, we're going to step into the early 19th century when American writers were definitely working to create this distinct national literature. The United States was politically independent. So now writers like Irving and Cooper and Bryant were asking themselves, what makes American literature American? They looked to a couple things for inspiration to the wilderness, to folklore, to death, and to history, and most importantly, to the American landscape. They use this as a source of identity, as a source of myth, and as a source of meaning. The first one we'll cover is Washington Irving's Rip Van Winkle, published 1819. Washington Irving is considered to be one of the first American authors to earn international respect. He drew on this European storytelling traditions, but also adapted them to American settings and also American themes. The story Rip Van Winkle is about a lazy but good-natured man who wanders off into the woods, drinks with some kind of ghostly figures, and then falls asleep for roughly 20 years, and then wakes up after the American Revolution's happened. He goes back into his town, and his family, and his country have all changed. When he goes to sleep, he is under rule of someone named King George, and when he comes back, he's under rule of someone who's a president named George. Imagine that. So basically, about all the change that happened in those 20 years. Some key themes to look at when you're reading this is change versus stagnation or not changing. Rip doesn't change. He sleeps through this big revolution, but everything else around him does change. This raises questions about how individuals relate to major historical events instead of how a nation relates to it or responds to it, how an individual might. Then there's the theme of myth making. Irving draws from European folk tales like German legends of enchanted people who sleep for a long time, but he places them in the Catskills, and this builds a uniquely American folklore. I think at the beginning of this, it's like he's come upon a lost manuscript of some American folklore. There are some European influences in the story. You'll be able to tell that as you read in the descriptions of the little people it sees in the woods. Um, Historical amnesia. The story satirizes how people can selectively remember the past. Rip is almost a ghost in this new republic he finds himself in. He finds himself like almost Marty McFly, out of time and out of place. The key line that you might pick up on while reading this is Rip was ready to attend anybody's business but his own. Remember, he was in everybody else's business, didn't take care of his own affairs, but was in everybody else's, helping people with other things. A discussion idea here for you is Rip Van Winkle a harmless dreamer, or is he a symbol of something else, like resistance to change, or a symbol of nostalgia for the simplicity of colonial life, maybe? Think about those things as you read. You're next going to read James Fenimore Cooper. You're going to just read a portion of From the Last of the Mohicans, which was published in 1826. James Fenimore Cooper was the first major American novelist. His leather stocking tales feature this character, Natty Bumppo, who is a wilderness scout who bridges the world between white settlers and Native Americans. The Last of the Mohicans is set during the French and Indian War, which went from 1754 to 1763. That was a critical conflict between the British and the French empires for control of North America. Both sides enlisted Native American allies, and the war exposed these deep divisions between the tribes in America, between European colonizers and also like these emerging seeing themselves as colonists. So Britain, France, different tribes, and colonists were all kind of in this conflict together. The French and Indian War was the North American theater of the global 7 Years' War. British, Great Britain and France. British colonists and their native allies fought French forces and their native allies for control of territory, especially the territory that was in the Ohio River Valley. The war ultimately ended with the Treaty of Paris in 1763, which gave Britain control over a lot of North America, but also sowed these seeds of colonial resentment due to all the British taxes and restrictions that were there. Why it mattered for Cooper. Cooper dramatizes the history as a clash of cultures and also of values. He captures a moment when this indigenous life, the tribes, colonial ambition, and wilderness are all in like violent collision with each other. They're all undergoing this kind of transformation and change. Some themes that are present in the reading: the wilderness and civilization. The forest is majestic and dangerous, stage for heroism and also brutality, for progress, for loss. Then there's cultural identity. Cooper romanticizes Native American characters like Uncas and Chingachgook, sorry, but also reflects his era stereotypes. His native often treats native, I'm sorry, his narrative treats Native Americans like they're noble characters, but they're doomed in a way. There's an American heroism that's going on. Natty Bumppo or Hawkeye, the Hawkeye figure, represents this like rugged, self-reliant American, somebody who's deeply rooted in nature, who's loyal to the principles they hold, and then maybe untouched or unbothered by the European politics that are happening. A key passage here, I want you to look for moments when Cooper reflects on the loss of native culture and also the rise of American expansion. He often seems torn between like this admiration and this like inevitability of all of it. A discussion idea here: does Cooper's attempt to honor Native Americans succeed, or does it reinforce any stereotypes that you might have had before? What do we make of his vanishing peoples? So a lot of you probably, or some of you may have seen the movie version of Last of the Mohicans, the most recent one with Daniel Day-Lewis. Great film, filmed in Western North Carolina, and a lot of great landscapes. And if you are reading this and imagining what landscape might look at, take a look at that film. It's very good. Um, Good music, a good soundtrack as well. The last piece, Thanatopsis, by William Cullen Bryant, published in 1817, and I think reworked again in about 1821. Bryant was a poet. He was an editor and an early voice of American Romanticism. He looked to nature and to reason rather than tradition or authority. He did those things to understand life and death. First, what's American Romanticism? Romanticism was like this literary and philosophical movement that began in Europe in the late 18th century and then flourished in America from roughly the beginning of the 1800s till around 1865, end of the Civil War. American Romantics valued a couple things: nature as a source of truth and beauty, emotion, intuition, and imagination over reason. Think about that. Emotion, intuition, and imagination were valued over reason. They also valued the individual's connection to the infinite, or what's possible. Anything's possible. And also a celebration of death, mystery, and the sublime, things that are beneath the surface. Um, or the things that make you happy, sorry. In America, Romanticism took on a national flavor by emphasizing a couple things: wilderness and landscape as a as these things were central to our national identity, wilderness and landscape for American Romanticism. A spiritual connection to nature rather than like a formal religion, poetic reflection on life and death and then even the afterlife. This poem, Thanatopsis, means a view of death. It's a contemplative, philosophical poem that urges readers to see death not as something to fear, but as a natural or even beautiful part of life. Some key themes here are that death as unity. Bryant says that death returns us to the earth where we'll rest with kings, the wise, the good. It's the great equalizer. Death is something that none of us will escape. Kings will die, your father, your mother, your children, everyone has to face it. It's the great equalizer. No matter what your um, uh, status in life is, or if you're rich or poor, everyone has to face death. Number two, nature as a comforter. Instead of turning to religion, Bryant turns to the natural world for this reassurance he needs. The mountains, the rivers, and forests are like eternal, and they're welcoming. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, as Robert Frost will say many years later. The American landscape as this sacred thing is this other key factor. Unlike European poets writing about like cathedrals and ruins that they've seen in Europe, which are lovely, Bryant finds this majesty in this American scenery, like a poetic nationalism that's rooted in the landscape itself. Some key lines from the poem, Thanatopsis. So live that when thy summons comes, thou go not like the quarry slave at night, scourged to his dungeon, but sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. A discussion idea here. How does Bryant's view of death compare to early Puritan writings, like Jonathan Edwards, for instance? What makes this poem American in its voice and the imagery that it implies? For some closing thoughts, this is a literature of place and identity. These three authors for this module reflect early attempts to define what it means to be American through literature. For instance, Irving, whose focus was history and myth, contributed by transforming folklore into this national type of storytelling. And Cooper, who focused more on frontier and conflict, uh, explored American heroism and this native presence that was there. Bryant, lastly, who focused on nature and mortality, grounded poetry in American landscapes and in this romantic philosophy. And each one of these authors and poets draw from European literary traditions, but they turn their gaze toward Americans' unique landscapes, the conflicts that were there, and the philosophical questions that were lying in your country. Together, all three of them, or separately, they help to create a foundation for American literature that's rooted in both reflection and also imagination, and deeply connected to history, nature, and in this national identity. What does it mean to be American? I hope you've enjoyed the lecture this week. We're at the end of the back half of the module, week 5 through 8. Make sure to continue to keep notes in your journal, and I will talk to you soon. Let me know if you have any questions. Email me. Thank you.